I mean, in a nutshell, it feels like Alex Len over the 8 games that he played from Minnesota to the end of the season as the reserve center, he's earned himself the nod for minutes behind Sabonis, but I just don't really see that lasting too long. I think the only real big man that the only real two big men, I guess, that Golden State's going to play is Looney and Green. And I just think, again, with the ability to get, whether you want them to switch off or not, to get the bigger guy on a smaller guy with the way the Warriors move and the way that Steph Curry and other guys are just a threat at any point, or just any amount of space can be threatening. I just think that Len is going to just not be the ideal guy given the matchup. Now, does that mean Metu's going to be the guy? I don't know. I mean, like, if he's really making a defensive impact and being smart, knowing his role, and just not doing anything to hurt the team, which is sometimes a lot to ask, then great. But I still feel like, to just kind of cut it short here, it's just like you said it best, playing Lyles at the 5 and letting Kessler Edwards be that fourth guy off the bench. I think Kessler Edwards could be, in a similar way of talking about Moody and JaMychal Green, maybe even more so for Kessler Edwards, that he can be the real kind of difference maker in terms of the benches. And that backup 5 thing is going to be kind of a central, like, what happens there. I mean, I'm assuming we agree on this. It sounds like we do. I mean, like, how do you envision this going? Do you think Len's going to get minutes to start, or do you think they're just going to cut to the chase and just maybe throw Metu out there? Or, I mean, how much of testing the waters are they going to do? It seems like they kind of have to test the waters, right?
Yeah, I mean they have to, right? You have to test the waters. Len has been playing so well as of late. I mean, maybe you have to at least give him a shot at this point. And just the way, as much as he's been playing, it'd be weird not to give him a shot. That's how I feel.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's clear right from the get go, it's like, all right, just pull him. You can throw in Metu, you can throw in Lyles, but I mean, I don't know. I feel like at this rate, you kind of have to at least try Len, right?
Yeah, and honestly, just to kind of, just the size thing could become an advantage if the game really slows down and
It
there's not
could,
as
yeah.
much running and gunning. And even then, it's like Lynn is surprisingly mobile, and he's kind of always been a pretty decent floor runner despite being pretty big. I think he came into camp a little bit better in shape. I mean, like, not as good of shape, or it was not as big of a contrast as Trey Lyles had, because he got all the attention for that. But Len did the same, and it's just, there's definitely a chance. Like, I'm when we talk about like Len being potentially a bad option given the matchup, there's also a potential that he's a good option given the matchup. So many question marks with Alex Len, and he's just, like you said, I mean, he's earned it no matter what.
Who would have guessed?
I don't know. I mean, like, it seemed like you kind of did.
I
Like,
mean, at the beginning of the season, he was like the fourth, and he just
wait,
didn't play all year. It's just so
yeah.
weird that like, they know he's our backup center all of a sudden.
Well, when we were doing the first half grades, I gave him like a D minus or like a D plus or something, because I felt like, I'm like, if they're gonna play him, if he had any right to be on the floor and to help the team, he'd be playing. I overestimated Mike Brown at that point, which is not surprising because he's had the whole like trusting KZ Okpala or
Oh
trusting
god,
guys, and sometimes it
don't get
gets
me
in the way of
started.
like the actual player evaluation. So it's not surprising in hindsight, but it's like, at the time you were like, dude, he hasn't even gotten really a chance,
I did
which
say
is
that.
fair. And it's like, outside of maybe like a couple games early on, like I always point to the game in Charlotte on Halloween, excluding all those, the one game where he really had a chance to play, I mean, he was pretty good against Jokic. And of course, that was always the matchup where if he was ever going to get extended minutes, it'd be against a center like Jokic. But it seemed like you were pretty defensive of him.
I mean, but I also get where you're coming from, where it's like, well, it's like if he's not playing, it's like you can kind of conclude that he doesn't deserve to.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know either. But here we are. Alex Len's probably going to go into the postseason as their backup 5, and I'm happy with it. Let's see how long he holds that down for,
Mm-hmm.
especially against a small team like the Warriors.
And again, it's like, if we're really talking half court basketball, he's not just on the defensive end. I mean, even on the offensive end, I mean, he can be effective. Good screen
Yes.
setter, makes the right pass. He threaded a needle to, I think it was Keegan Murray's dunk on Sunday, which was like his season highlight for getting air.
Yeah.
Um, and which was a lot better than his like first dunk of the season, which was really kind of like awkward and delayed. I don't remember who that was against, but I think it was in like January. Anyway, to get to the point, I mean, like he's also like not only a smart passer, he can make some good passes. He's a good screen setter, rolls to the rim the right way, big body, a good target for dump offs and stuff like that. Certainly a way that he can work, but just given the whole, like if you recall, Chimezie Metu got tread in the fourth quarter of the first game they played against the Warriors. The Warriors looked like they had just blown out the Kings, and the Kings made a miraculous near comeback. And Mike Brown said that the pivotal aspect of that near comeback was Chimezie Metu and his ability to switch and his versatility and athleticism on that end. So that definitely comes into play. And I don't know, we'll see. And then obviously it's like you can't just give, especially given the way Metu kind of closed the season, which was, I feel like he was really overly ambitious on offense, which he can do at times, but it just seemed like he was right before he lost kind of that backup center role again. And then even in these couple of games where like starters were resting against the Warriors, or where essentially it was kind of like a preseason format in the game against Denver, where the starters played the first part of the game, then you kind of went down the line. There's been moments where Chimezie Metu just thinks he's Mezzi Mamba. And there were like the second half of the Warriors game, he started I think he went like 5 of 6 or something. Like he was nailing everything. And so it gets kind of like tempting. But I don't know. I just feel like, especially in the playoffs, it's like there's going to be so many moments where Mike Brown needs to tug on that leash, which is already so short. So when you start talking about that kind of stuff, it is hard to ignore the idea that, well, it kind of feels like if it's not going to be Len, I don't want to say I don't trust Metu or that they shouldn't trust Metu. I just feel like we've said it all season. It's like, if you are going to play small ball 5, why don't you just go with Lyles at the 5 and then use Kessler Edwards? And again, talking about the matchup, that actually seems like that could work. I mean, if Len doesn't work, that seems like the next best option. You know what I mean? So
Yeah, 100%. You'd rather have Lyles there at the 5 than Metu, right?
especially if Lyles is hitting threes, because Metu is just, we've talked about it. I mean, he was never really a 3-point threat, but he's had his moments. And I think it was in that last game against Denver, he had a wide open 3 on the wing and he was like going to put it up, and it was the weakest hesitation, like in terms of just his ambition had totally just deflated, and it just kind of went from being this wide open shot to he like dribbled it up, and then they had to like find something else. And what are you doing? Just put it up at that point, you dingus. So it's really not, I don't know. It's also kind of a sign of like, is Metu in the right headspace? Is got the right amount of confidence? Does he know what to do? That, especially in the playoffs, I don't know. Like there's reasons to be very skeptical of Metu. Whereas Len, I think Len has playoff experience. Did he have experience with maybe not like as a huge role, but did he have it that one year with Atlanta?
I don't know. I don't know if Atlanta was good then, because they got Trae Young. I don't know if
Len was their starting center, so it might not have been good. and then Lyles has like a little bit of playoff experience, I think, with the Spurs, but again, he was.
What about with the Nuggets?
Oh, Lyles, probably were. It might not have been. It might have been both.
I'm looking up Len now. Len Sanity.
Okay. A Len.
Show playoff series. He has one. It was actually in. He was on Washington.
Wow. Yeah. And Trey Lyles, it's Denver. He's had a couple of series with Denver, and then before that was actually with Utah.
Yeah, he got drafted by Utah.
Yeah.
Utah Jazz.
Yeah. Just
in case you didn't know, that was their team.
Right.
But kind of like what you were saying, like at the end of the day, I trust Len's IQ over Metu's, and that's huge for the playoffs.
Yeah, Metu, just don't trust. Fitting into your role, doing your role, being a star in your role. Metu's done it for stretches, but it's not super convincing. And again, those stretches and the things that he does well, like running the floor and stuff like that, and I don't know. I mean, like, is that going to come into play as much? I mean, the thing that is going to keep him on the floor is if he really does make a defensive impact, and all of a sudden, well, the Kings are switching 1 through 5. Well, then that becomes an issue too, because then you got Sabonis off the floor. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what happens, because if Metu's really making an impact on defense, I don't know. We'll have to see. It's very, very a lot of working parts there.